We are in the season of the days of awe. Rabbi Yohanan, who lived in the land of Israel in the 3rd century BCE, describes his conception of divine judgment and inscription in this season. 3 books are opened in heaven on Rosh Hashanah, one for the completely wicked, one for the completely righteous, and one for those in between. The completely wicked are immediately inscribed in the book of death. The fate of those in between is suspended until Yom Kippur. If they do well, they are inscribed in the book of life, if not, in the book of death.
Please join me. This flame affirms the light of truth, the warmth of community, and the fire of commitment.
And now if you will turn with me to number 461 at the back. This is a responsive reading. I will start with the plain text, if you would please respond with the italicized. Nothing worth doing is completed in our lifetime.
Therefore, we are saved by hope.
Nothing true or beautiful or good makes complete sense in any immediate context of history.
Therefore, we are saved by faith.
Nothing we do, however virtuous, can be accomplished alone.
Therefore, we are saved by love.
No virtuous act is quite as virtuous from the standpoint of our friend or foe as from our own.
Therefore, we are saved by the final form of love, which is forgiveness. So I'm going to read a poem by Antonio Machado. He was a Spanish poet. He was born 1875 and lived until 1939. He was not just a poet, he was a school teacher. He was a newspaper journalist who wrote articles about politics and the moral issues of his day in Spain. Now, Machado has the same recognition in the Spanish-speaking world as the English poets such as Yeats and Rilke. So he's a widely loved poet. And this is a great poem. It's called Last Night as I Was Sleeping. Last night as I was sleeping, I dreamt marvelous error that a spring was breaking out in my heart. I said, along which secret aqueduct, O water, are you coming to me? Water of new life that I have never drank? Last night, as I was sleeping, I dreamt marvelous error that I had a beehive here in my heart. And the golden bees were making white combs and sweet honey from my failures. Last night, as I was sleeping, I dreamt marvelous error that a fiery sun was giving light inside my heart. It was fiery because I felt warmth as from a hearth, and sun because it gave light and brought tears to my eyes. Last night as I slept, I dreamt marvelous error that it was God I had here inside my heart.
We'll be delivering a sermon that was shared with the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Gainesville, Florida, by the Reverend Dr. Maureen Killoran. That was on September 20th, 2015. It's a hard subject these days, forgiveness. Whether it's my Twitter feed or the newspaper, the presidential debates, or even Facebook, every time I look, somebody is leaping to the barricades. Something unforgivable has been done. And whether warranted or not, somebody's offended. Again. I wonder if we haven't lost perspective just a little bit. Sure, there are those really big things where the word forgive just doesn't compute. The terrorist attacks of 9/11, the atrocities of the Holocaust, evils that consolidated into the plight of the world's refugees. There may be things we would call unforgivable, but most of them are big, huge things that happened in the world, not what somebody has done directly to us. They are not a matter of our personal offense. And here's the key: they are not ours to forgive. In the words of renowned Holocaust scholar Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel, no one can forgive crimes committed against other people. Only those wrongs committed against or by ourselves and against or by our chosen community, only these do we have the right to forgive. This Tuesday evening begins the Jewish high holiday of Yom Kippur, a day intended for reconciliation between human beings and God, and if that last word stops you, translate it into a time to reconnect with your highest values. Yom Kippur is a time for righting wrongs, for releasing resentment, for finding the courage to forgive. Yom Kippur is about teshuvah, turning, returning, coming back to your finest self. It seems good to have a season that nudges you into this kind of work, as opposed to having to figure it out on our own or not. Take my friend Lily, for example. She carries this huge metaphorical basket of unforgivables, and she clutches them like diamonds. Lily wonders about it sometimes, though. I remember her saying, "I feel like I keep taking poison and wondering why the other person doesn't die." Then there was my father, who, until his dying day, would readily enumerate every wrong he had suffered over his 86 years. To be fair, the wrongs were considerable. When my grandfather's new wife couldn't deal with the infant whose birth occasioned the death of wife number one, they farmed him, my dad, out to a series of foster homes. They brought him back after a few years, but by then my grandfather had become a mean drunk who vented his rage with daily beatings of his newly reclaimed son. Daddy scrambled from pillar to post for most of his life. There were good times, of course there were, but by the end, pretty much the only thing he talked about was his anger at a lifetime of wrongs. My father's bitterness cost him much of the joy that could have been his life had he been able to leave the wrongs behind. Please do not misunderstand me. I'm not saying the wrongs were or ever will be okay. Forgiveness is not about forgetting. Forgiveness does not mean you have to trust or like the person who hurt you, or set yourself up to be hurt again. What forgiveness does is say, yes, this wrong happened. Yes, I have sought or will seek justice if I can, but I refuse to carry this rage, this anger in my heart. I choose to move on. Forgiveness is letting the wrong live in its own time. That's the wisdom of late ethicist Lewis Smedes. Forgiveness is letting the wrong live in its own time. Remember the two Buddhist monks who came to the edge of a river where the bridge had washed away. A beautiful woman was running up and down the bank, weeping as she tried to figure out how to cross. "Please, sirs, help me. My mother is dying and I must get home, but I cannot swim." The first monk ignored her. With a he plunged straight into the water and half swam, half walked to the other side. The second monk stopped, meditated. Then silently he lifted the woman onto his back and ferried her across the river. Setting the woman down, he resumed his journey. The monks walked for a while,
when the first monk burst out, "I cannot believe you touched that woman. You know it is totally forbidden for us to touch a female. When the abbot hears this, you'll be scrubbing floors for the rest of your life." The second monk was incredulous. "Are you still carrying her? I put that woman down an hour ago." Forgiveness is letting the wrong live in its own time. And make no mistake, nobody says it's easy. Jesus may have taught that we should forgive 70 times 7, but I'm not Jesus, and neither are you. Without intention, without effort, it is far, far easier to just keep carrying that load. But it does not do us any good. Anger and outrage destroy us as they weave themselves quite literally into the fibers of our being. But don't take my word for it. The British Mental Health Foundation found strong positive correlation between unforgiveness and heart disease, stroke, depression, self-harm, substance abuse, colds and the flu, higher stress levels, and negative relationships. Studies done at the University of Maryland School of Medicine suggest that forgiveness is directly related to improved cardiac function, diminished pain, lower blood pressure, and a stronger immune system. Makes you wonder, who or what might be connected with that pain in your neck? What's in the load that you are carrying that's exasperating your sore back? What are you chewing on that feeds your midnight belly ache? Who or what are you choosing not to forgive? And why is this unforgiveness more important to you than moving on? Let me recap. Refusing to forgive, holding on to our righteous anger, our resentment, damages our bodies, and denies our spirits the ability to grow. So what are we going to do? Oh, goodness me, I get it. I'll just click a switch and let all this stuff go. I don't think so. Forgiveness begins with commitment, but after that, it's deep down hard work. Some of you may recall almost exactly 10 years ago in the Amish community of Nickel Mines, Pennsylvania, when Charles Carl Roberts IV walked into the one-room schoolhouse, shot 5 schoolgirls, and wounded 5 others before committing suicide. The nation was shocked, yes, by the shooting, of course. Please God, we will always be outraged by the shooting of children. And we were especially shocked that the old order Amish, a people of peace, were violated in this way. We struggle to understand the compassion the Amish extended to the Roberts family, their almost immediate and public extension of forgiveness to the killer. Oh, that's just what they do, people said. I guess for the Amish, it comes more easily. Wrong. Anthropologist Donald Craybill spent several weeks in Nickel Mines right after the shooting. He says what shaped the Amish response was their absolute intentionality. What from the outside seemed like quick forgiveness was neither easy nor inevitable. In his book, Amish Grace, Craybill wrote, "The Amish teach us that forgiveness is less a matter of forgive and forget than of forgive and remember. Remembering in ways that bring healing. When we remember, we take the broken pieces of our lives that have been dismembered by tragedy and injustice, and remember them into something whole. When we remember, we take the broken pieces of our lives and remember them into something whole." True forgiveness, said Archbishop Desmond Tutu, whose South African creds surely give him the right to speak. True forgiveness deals with the past, all of the past, to make the future possible. Isn't that what we're about, or at least what we'd like to be? Making the future possible? Making the future possible, whether it's in your own days or the future of your children, of the next months and years and decades of this church. Living today in ways that say, we can let the wrongs live in their own time. We can learn from them, and we will move on. And yes, I'll say it because there is an elephant in the room, the kind of elephant where you've got some people who know all about it and others who just kind of feel it's there, and some who wouldn't know an elephant if it came and sat in their lap. I think everybody has that situation. And then there are at least some people here in this room who are really hoping I'll change my mind right now and finish this sermon another way. But a community is like a family. Pain heals better when it's lifted into the light. Everybody, take a deep breath. This fellowship is on the healing side of a huge conflict, the kind of struggle where everybody's got a different story and everybody believes it's true and the other sides have it wrong. I wasn't here, but I know it was a very human story. Had to do with strong people taking strong sides. And ultimately, when the dust settled, the very long-term music director no longer worked here, and not long afterwards, the minister took a church in New York. Fingers were pointing every which way, and a bunch of members, for apparently various reasons, got mad and resigned. If you weren't here back then, you can ask a dozen people who were. But the reality is, like any serious conflict, there is no single right story. There is no single truth to be surfaced or told. There are only people who believed they were doing the right thing. Some people who lost their tempers. Some people who took action. Other people who disagreed and left, and other people who stayed. And others still who either recently or a while ago have returned home. It's a very human story, and it tore this fellowship at its very heart. And now we are healing together, building trust together, working together to nurture what surely we all need, all want, which is a beloved community of very human beings. True forgiveness, said Archbishop Desmond Tutu. True forgiveness deals with the past, all of the past, to make the future possible. Yom Kippur, my friends, challenges us to choose the path to our highest selves. In this season of atonement, may we acknowledge where we've messed up, both as individuals and as a community. When it comes to the wrongs done to us or our community, when it comes to the wrongs we, in our turn, have done, may we let them all live in their own time. And may we particularly release those wrongs we hold most closely to our hearts. Today and every day, may we find the courage to return. For life can only thrive when we ourselves begin again in love. May it be so.
I have a commentary to add in the spirit of atonement. I am going to dive right in and ask your forgiveness for something I had been planning to do until very, very recently. You see, I don't really like parties, and I was planning to make up an excuse to say that I absolutely couldn't make it to the UUCIL 60th anniversary celebration that's coming up soon. So you may laugh, but parties make me feel uncomfortable, and it's easier to keep avoiding that situation. And as Reverend Dr. Killoran puts it, it's easier just to keep carrying that load, but it doesn't do us any good. I know I want to move away from that unsociable me because I know I have a great deal to offer to others. It would be for everyone's benefit if I just got over this fear of parties. So I'm planning to go after all. And I am asking your forgiveness because you are all part of my close spiritual community. And we deserve to give each other our very best selves. In the sermon we just heard, we found out about a group in a UU fellowship community who went through severe conflict and pain. While UUCIL may not be in that same place right now, nevertheless, we are a family of various personalities and feelings and intentions, and we will never always agree 100%. But we know we deserve to give each other our very best selves. The Jewish observance of the days of awe that we have thought about today are saying to us, come back to your finest self. I would like to suggest that in the face of our newest responsibility as a beloved community, that is, to prepare ourselves individually and as a whole congregation to find and call our next minister, that we move to make our good future possible through work on that path to our highest selves. So finally, I want to point out something. This is a dahlia, and the season for dahlias are over. I mean, you can hardly find a living one. And this one is opening. It will get much bigger than this. This one is opening. Not only is this one opening, there are 3 buds, new buds. I suggest we are never too old to open and grow. Now, this, it's stuck. This is honey. This is honey in a comb, and you're invited to come up afterwards if you've never seen a comb of honey. Honey is sweetness. I suggest we deserve to bring sweetness into our own lives, into our own spirits, and into our own community. And lastly, this is a type of sage in the family of sage, a salvia. And in connecting the word sage, I suggest that we remember wisdom, that as we turn and return to our highest selves, it takes work and intention. That is what wisdom comes from. Thank you. Thank you so much. That was so beautiful, and it really moved me to the feelings that are behind this service today. I really thank you both. I know you both really worked to practice and to give us that very best of your musical selves. So along the road to stewardship, we are we're asked to give what we can, and we are hoping that today you do feel the richness of community, and that we are here because we really love one another and we want the whole good. We may not like every single person, but we are here to love and be open. So with that, I'm going to call the ushers forward. Thank you. Please take a moment to breathe, to set your intention for this day, and to help us end our service with the words, "We extinguish this flame,
but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again." My closing words come from Father Tom Bonacci, who's the founder of the Interfaith Peace Project. And he shared this on September 21st, the International Day of Peace. We are invited to practice peace in all the affairs of our daily lives. Consider practicing peace for 24 hours as you go about the typical and ordinary affairs and routine of your day. Practicing peace at the office, the supermarket, or sitting in traffic introduces us to the deepest levels of peacemaking. In such moments, we become aware of our emotions and thoughts. We might realize how easily irritated we can become. We encounter the disappointments of life. We might even find that we judge ourselves harshly. In such moments, we consciously and deliberately invite ourselves to a greater consciousness. In light of our own struggles, we become aware of what other people might be feeling. As we become more empathic, we can feel the peace in our hearts flow out to others. In this moment, we can offer friendship, support, and understanding to others frustrated, suffering, and hurting people. The pursuit of peace requires the courage to recognize and honor the dignity of others. Disagreements over issues do not diminish the dignity or rights of others to live in peace, safety, and security. What we practice in a conscious way is meant to empower us so we become peacemakers each and every day. May we all go forward with peace in our hearts and actions.